Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk.
My badass woman of the week, her name is Tanara Burke, and you might already know Tanara from her #MeToo movement. She's a civil rights activist from the Bronx, and she founded the Me Too movement. It was actually started over a decade ago in 2006. I didn't know that. She began using the phrase Me Too on social media to expose how widespread sexual assault is and to show survivors that they aren't alone. When Alyssa Milano encouraged her followers to respond to the tweet with Me Too in it in 2017, she revitalized the movement again. The phrase and hashtag quickly developed into a broad-based and eventually internationally known movement. Since then, dozens of people have been publicly accused of sexual misconduct. The movement took over Hollywood, and Burke has become a feminist hero. High-profile Hollywood figures were criticized worldwide after allegations. I don't really want to include who. We all kind of have a good idea.
We all know their names by now.
It's
a long list.
Like I said, Burke was born in the Bronx. She's from the Bronx, raised in the Bronx. She grew up in a low-income, working-class family in a housing project, and unfortunately was raped and sexually assaulted both as a child and a teenager. Her mother supported her recovery from these violent acts and encouraged her to be involved in the community. Amazing. In her biography, Burke states that these experiences inspired her to work to improve the lives of girls who undergo extreme hardships. As a teenager, she became involved in working to improve the lives of young girls living in marginalized communities. Burke attended Alabama State University, then transferred and graduated from Auburn University. During her time in college, she organized press conferences and protests regarding economic and racial justice. So Burke is quoted saying, "I was working and living in Alabama at the time, and we started this organization called Just Be Inc. It's a nonprofit, which it's an all-girls program for young Black women ages 12 to 18. She was teaching these women to help develop a sense of self-worth, which we differentiated from self-esteem, right? Two different things. Our theory was that you have to build a sense of self-worth before you even have a healthy self-esteem. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And I believe that. It took me a long time to even discover that myself. We were encountering a number of girls who were disclosing sexual violence. They were disclosing their experiences, and sometimes they didn't even know that it was sexual violence. They would just tell us things like, I had a 7th grade girl, 12 years old, say to me once, her boyfriend was 21 years old, and I thought that wasn't a relationship, that's a crime. We put our MySpace page up, and within days, there was no such thing as viral back then. But it was there, and this would be as close to that as possible. Within a week or so, we had so many responses from women saying, thank you so much for doing this. This is really amazing. How can I get involved? We need help. We realized this was bigger than we thought. People, and again, this is Tarana speaking, people call me a leader of this movement, and I accept that as a title, I guess, but I'm a worker more than anything. I think it's just helped me to scale up and to expand the work that I've been doing and the vision I have for this work. It's given me a larger platform to speak up about it, talk about it, and more resources to actually implement some of these ideas. The #MeToo is essentially about survivors supporting survivors. It's really about a community healing and community action. Although we can't define with healing looks for people, we can set the stage and give people the resources to have access to healing. And that means legitimate things like policies and laws that change that support for survivors. For instance, there's rape kits across the country that need to be tested, so the survivors who were assaulted can find some sort of justice through that system.
Yeah,
what are the policies? Yeah, what are these policies in place in the local school and around vetting teachers? People at work can organize and take and examine your sexual harassment policy. Interesting. And she writes, it's humbling, first of all. It's deeply humbling to have people invested in this idea that was really essentially started to help our community. But it's also hopeful that the world is changing to a place where we can have open discussions about sexual violence and how it affects millions and millions of people around the world. I've picked up a lot of this information on the insider.com and Wikipedia. There's so much more to talk about Tanara. And you can go to those websites to learn more about her.
Thank you. I love her. I do. It reminds me, I've been listening to a new podcast, and it's a hard one. It's called Chasing Cosby. It's rough. I'm new to it, but I'm only about 3 episodes in. It's very well done. I love the woman who's doing it. But, all right. On that note, we have a wonderful woman that we're going to meet with today, Jimie Monte. Jimie is, or used to be, well, she still is, a great rock climber. She used to actually do it competitively, but now she is a founder of My Boulder Babysitter here in Boulder, where she is a babysitting extraordinaire, and she has really built up this business into something, and she's going to teach us all about it and all about her life.
Welcome, Jimie. We're so glad to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So you own My Boulder Babysitter.
That's correct, yes.
And we were just talking about how I have seen you around when I'm out walking dogs, and I've seen you around for years, and I've always been curious who you are, what my Boulder Babysitter was all about. Yeah, and I just thought, what a great idea, because it's another important service, just like my services, that is in high demand. One, it's not going away anytime soon. Two. And I kept seeing you. So I knew that you were a business that was consistent. I knew that you cared about your business because you were marketing. And it looked your actual logo. I wanted to get to know you. I was drawn towards you immediately. And so when we started this podcast and I was on Instagram, I happened to find you again. And I thought, oh, the stars have aligned. And there's a reason why now she is popping up into my feed. So I reached out to you, and I'm just thrilled that you said yes to come onto the show.
Yes.
And I guess my first question is, how did My Boulder Babysitter start?
Great. Well, like I said, it's kind of a long story, and it goes back 20 years. I started babysitting when I was 12, and just in some capacity I've always worked with kids, have always been drawn to them, which is pretty funny because I'm an only child. But I was always just drawn to playing with my cousins and the kids on my climbing team. I, babysat all through high school, and then funny enough, right when I moved to Colorado, one of the families that I babysat for in Chicago moved out at the same exact time. So I worked for them immediately, and then it was word of mouth with their friends. And so my little service kind of took off here in college as well. And then after college, I got a full-time nanny job. And as the kids started getting older, I realized that they didn't need me full-time anymore, and that I still wanted to care for them. And I realized that one of the biggest issues with connecting parents and babysitters is, well, first of all, just finding each other. But then once you find each other, the hardest thing is to match up schedules. So even though a family would tell another family about me, my availability wouldn't work with their availability. And so back in 2012, I came up with the idea to put all of my availability online and just make sure it was super accurate, and just say, here I am. I'm ready to babysit. Here are all my qualifications and my references. You can see when I'm available. So if you need to make a doctor's appointment or do an event or something, you can just email me and it's available.
That's a brilliant idea. I'm a parent, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would love that if somebody just laid it all out there for me before I even have to make a phone call.
Correct. Yeah. So essentially it kind of cut out that 2-hour long back and forth texting, how about this day? How about this day? No, I'm not available that day. I'm not available that day. I just created a Google Calendar and just made sure that it was always accurate, so that you're oh, I have to do a doctor's appointment this week. Before you even call the doctor, before you even check with me, you just go online and see what some options might be.
How efficient.
Yes.
That's a great idea. Except Brett, you're a genius.
So I basically started as the only sitter for, I think, about 6 months. But within 6 months, my Google Calendar that I had posted online was fully booked. And I just kept getting the question, do you know anybody? And I don't really like saying no to people. I'm just kind of like, I want to say yes. And I was like, I don't, but I don't know why I couldn't, I don't know why I couldn't like hire friends of mine that I already know are trustworthy and good with kids. And that's kind of how I started. I started by just hiring a couple friends that I trusted. And then it kind of evolved from there with.
And so now you have a staff of sitters that work for you?
Yes.
And does everybody, I assume you do background checks and all of that
Yeah, so
stuff?
that's the big thing is I make sure that everyone's fully vetted. So I make sure that I like the answers to their application. I interview them for at least 2 hours and make sure that I just get like a good vibe from them. And then I call at least 3 references from families that they've actually babysat or nannied for in the past, not like, their sandwich shop job in college or something. And then I make sure that they're CPR or pediatric CPR certified and background checked, and I check their driving record and all that kind of stuff. So.
Are they employees or contract?
So they're
independent
contract
contractors?
employees, and one of the reasons for that is I am as well. It's just the nature of it, just being able to pick your own availability and not have to work for anyone at a certain time, and being able just having that flexibility.
And how many are there?
So currently there are about it's hard to say because I give them so much flexibility. There are a couple who are actually studying abroad right now, but they'll be back. But so about 13 total.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And that's the most I've ever had.
That's a big team.
It is a big team.
What is your? Oh, go ahead.
No, it's so wild to listen to you and hear the parallel of my business and how I started.
That's great.
You're telling my story, but it's just your different service.
Right.
It's so funny.
That's so cool.
Even that 6-month mark, was when I needed more help, and I couldn't say no. Right. So this is just so interesting.
That's awesome. I need to talk to you more because
yes, we will.
I thought I was the only one who started a business in such a
me too.
crazy way.
Me too. I didn't think there was any other pet sitters out there. I was wrong.
So that's the other thing. When I started my service, I didn't know that a babysitting service was a thing. I had no idea. And I think that was actually to my benefit because I didn't have any influence. I didn't go onto other nanny agencies or babysitting agency websites and think, oh, this is how I'm going to do it. I just did it how I felt it should be done.
Yeah. And it's great. I'm looking at the website right now.
Oh, really?
Did you do the website yourself?
I did do the website myself. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Another thing we have in common. Oh, this is great.
What do you
got,
think's been your biggest challenge with finding people that you trust to be, work for you? Because they're representing you.
It used to be a bigger challenge just because I didn't know as many people. And we just, I think, weren't established a lot or enough. And now that we I have a good website and we've got reviews online and just good word of mouth, I feel like babysitters kind of just come to me,
Right. So they know that you're the real deal.
The name My Boulder Babysitter helps on both ends because babysitters who are new to the area just look it up, or who are looking for a job, look up, babysitting jobs in Boulder, and my website pops up, and the same goes for parents as well.
What do you like best about childcare?
I think it's just what I like about hanging out with children in general. I'm just a very silly, lighthearted, fun-loving person, and I've always just been more drawn to hanging out with kids versus my own peers even. So in high school, I had no problem, giving up my Fridays and Saturday nights to go hang out with kids instead and just do fun stuff and, just not take things so seriously.
Do you have other jobs working with children before this?
Yeah. So I started babysitting when I was 12, but I also coached the toddlers team at my climbing gym and volunteered with the YMCA in their daycare. Let's see, what else did I do? I also was a camp counselor. I was a teacher's assistant at Thorne Nature School in college, and just various other things. Yeah.
I know sometimes you have this flexibility in a career like this, and because I kind of I do the same thing that Corey does, and you can choose to take people on or not take them on, and you also have the flexibility to be like, okay, well that's not really working out for me with this client, so I'm not going to pursue that relationship with that client anymore. Have you had instances like that come up with difficult parents or maybe difficult children that you've had to navigate that way?
Yes, unfortunately, but in the same way that I'm having an easier time hiring, I'm also having an easier time spotting when those situations are going to come up front. And
sometimes you can almost tell when they start asking questions.
But I didn't used to know, and I used to, like I said, I used to want to say yes to everybody, and it used to be a big thing. And I used to think, oh, in order to be in childcare, I have to be open and nice and work with everybody, no matter how difficult they are or how difficult or challenging it is to work with the child. And now I'm just realizing that in order to serve everyone, it's best if I kind of figure out which families might take more time and energy from me and from the sitters, and I know that's hard to that's unfortunate to say, but just to kind of confront them about it up front before we get into too much of a personal relationship, if that makes sense.
It's
and what doesn't, and honestly, what doesn't work for me and for our team, that doesn't mean that you won't find an option somewhere else.
Right. So. Right. Well, I think it's good because you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your team members.
Yeah, I definitely vet the I don't know if everyone realizes this, but I vet the families just as much as I vet the sitters, just to make I allow for the booking of babysitters online, so I don't want to send them someplace that I'm not comfortable sending them, or someplace where they're going to be I need them to trust me as well. So
that was my next question. You already answered it. I was going to say, do you actually vet the families?
Not on a deep level. I don't background check everybody. That would just be
But yeah, there's
ridiculous.
Of course, red flags, just like in my business. And what I'm thinking is, that's just the name of all businesses, right? We find there's people that we work well with and some that we don't. And, but you're a successful business, so I know that there's a lot of people that it has worked with.
Yes.
But it's very rare for me to have somebody who I say I turn down or isn't a good fit.
Right.
So I can relate with that too. Lisa kind of brushed upon this already, and you wrote about how the business is hard but fulfilling.
Yes.
And I want to hear about the fulfilling part for you.
I really enjoy being a resource for parents to just get some time to themselves and remember what it was like to be, either just individually or as a couple, just remember what it was like before kids and who they were. And I have always just said that I want to provide peace of mind to families. That's my biggest thing. I don't want to just be the babysitter or provide a babysitter that's going to, just show up and be fine. I want you to be able to leave your house and forget about it, which I know is probably near impossible, but I want to get you as close as possible. I want to get parents as close as possible to that feeling of just they can leave and have peace of mind and trust that everything's going to be okay or better than when they left.
Our services. So you're taking care of the human babies and I'm taking care of the fur babies. Again, peace of mind.
Yes.
That's my...
Just go, enjoy. We'll be here when you get back. Your house might be cleaner than you left it. Who knows?
And what's it like? Do you send updates now that we're in this technology era? Email during the babysitting care duration? Is it updates? Is it texts, pictures?
It really just depends on what the parents want, because it's this fine line between, we don't want to be on our phones the whole, it just depends on what the parents are feeling. A lot of especially new parents, especially parents of babies, want little text updates and pictures and things like that, when the baby can't tell you, yes, I had a great time, but usually like they'll specifically ask for that. And if they don't, I just say, keep your phone in your bag or nearby.
What's the youngest you've cared for?
Oh, like days old, because and usually when that's the case, it's that they have older siblings and that they've already used us for so long and trust us and just need help when the baby comes home from the hospital.
Now, do you want to have kids yourself?
It's a tricky question.
I know you have so many you take care of now, right?
So I actually in the last couple months have taken a step back from the actual babysitting and have been focusing more on growing the business myself. Trying to start another business, but I thought I'd have more time. But anyway, just kind of taking a step back so that my husband and I can think about having our own family, just because when I was babysitting, I'd honestly come home and just need the peace and quiet so that I could go back and take care of someone else's kids the next day.
Of course. Recharge.
And a lot of babysitting is nighttime, right? So if I'm always babysitting at night, how could I care for my own child, right? So I've just been trying to take a step back.
What's this other business you're thinking about?
So back in the summer, I realized that I have all these thoughts that I've just been compiling over the last 20 years on how to be the best babysitter. And now that I'm employing babysitters, how parents can better manage their babysitters and nannies, because sometimes they don't necessarily go about it in the right way. And also become a resource for agencies to kind of start up faster and kind of skip some of the mistakes that I've made. And I thought by taking a step back from my Boulder Babysitter that I would have more time to work on this business, and it's just been I was wrong. I thought that I would have I was like, oh, if I'm not babysitting, I'm going to have so much time to do. What am I going to do? I'm going to need other things to do. But that's not true. I just realized that I'm finally taking the time that I needed to grow my Boulder Babysitter. But I am attempting to start a business called My Better Babysitter that can help anyone. So any babysitter, any parent employing a babysitter, or any agency anywhere, not just here in this county.
And what makes My Boulder Babysitter stand out from the rest?
Oh, from the rest of
the other babysitters,
don't call
agencies.
The teenage, college.
I mean,
the
again,
Babysitters Club.
Yeah.
Again, it's the peace of mind, and where that comes from is the fact that I vet them all ahead of time. I also am the only one doing hiring, so I feel like even though it's not the same babysitter every single time, there just seems to be some sort of consistency, because I have certain people that I tend to like to hire more than other people. And I also check in with families every single time that they have a new sitter and make sure that everything is going really well. So for example, when you hire a babysitter, you call 3 references, right? And then you probably never talk to anyone else again. You only have your experiences with them in your home. But I check in weekly with dozens of different families and make sure that quality is consistent, and that, that they're working well with every family and not just yours, or, and not every sitter is going to work well with every family. So
how many households do you think you have on your
that's
roster?
A really complicated question, and I've been trying to get an exact number recently.
Yeah. Or how many ever?
So
just say, make it a flat.
I'd say in the last 20 years, I've probably personally babysat for well over 1,000 families, which is insane.
You're a professional. You're certified. You're qualified. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
I love.
Sure.
In your question, you mentioned this, or in your answers, you mentioned this several times about, you talk about mom guilt and how you want to help moms with that.
Yes.
But then you also bring that back around to you and how you're stepping back, and that you almost experience this feeling of guilty.
Oh, I do.
Too.
Yeah.
Talk about that with us.
Okay. So the first thing is that one of the reasons that I've noticed that moms will not hire a babysitter is because they feel like it should be them. And I really want to make moms feel comfortable enough hiring a babysitter that they and provide that peace of mind again that they can actually get that chance to go do whatever they need to do to remember how to be who they were before they had kids, because I think that that's really important. And I just don't think that there should be any guilt associated with that. But unfortunately, there really, really is. Just I'm not a mom myself, but I just have been in, like I said, like 1,000 households. And that mom guilt is common, and that anxiety around leaving your kids and entrusting them to someone else and feeling like it, I could, like, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should all the time, if that makes sense. And then I definitely feel like I've felt that recently as I've taken this step back and I'm not the one babysitting all the time and all the sitters are doing it. I feel guilty. And I don't know if it's the same.
Were you surprised by that?
Yeah. I think yes and no, because I think I would have taken a step back earlier if I didn't already feel guilty. But it's so I know that I need to take the step back and do the administrative stuff so that I can grow the business and help more people. But it is so tempting to just say yes to families and cover everyone's needs at all times and go see the kids that I love so much, Yeah.
Speaking of kids that you love so much, that's a question I have is, what is that like when they are old enough and that they're not needing your services anymore? Do you have like a goodbye, or is it just they just kind of disappear?
So it used to be harder, and I think the time that I think of right now is with the first family that I nannied for. When I started, the kids were 3 and 1, and I was with them full time. And that was 2010, and I haven't seen them in the last 3 months, I think. And that's the longest we've ever gone without seeing each other. But they're also preteens, and I respect that. They don't necessarily need me. So, but it's
That's really special that they can find you, though. Someone who, to me, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and as a mom, I'm like, yeah, that's somebody I want. Because you not only seems like you really care for these kids, and you also care really about the parents. And I think that's very rare to find somebody that thinks about all the sides and instead of just thinking of, oh, I'm going to come in here and watch this child, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So as a mom, I want to just thank you for being out there and providing the services you're doing and for caring
thank you so
the way
much.
you are.
I definitely it's funny because I want as many people as possible to know about the service and know that we exist. I think every single mom in this county wants a babysitter, but they don't necessarily know that it's as easy as I'm making it. So, but the other struggle is that I can't tell everyone, because if I tell everyone, then we'll be too booked.
We just
all the
need to
time.
clone you many times.
I know, that's why I hired people.
When you are not managing the business or starting a
man.
new business, what can
That's
we
a
find
really good
Jimie doing?
question. I love to travel. I basically do all my hard work so that I can take a couple weeks a year with my husband and just travel. But it used to be more fun, I guess, because now when I'm traveling, I'm still checking in and running the business on a daily basis. So maybe someday I'll have an assistant that can help with that while I'm gone, but not yet.
You rock climb.
I do.
How long have you been doing that?
Since I was 6 years old.
Wow. Where do you rock climb here? Outside or inside?
A little bit of both, but mostly, especially in the winter, at Evo over in Louisville.
And do you do it once a week, more than once a week?
I think
With your husband?
I think he climbs too. It really just depends on how busy my week is. I don't think I have a routine.
Is it something that's just a feel good kind of let go practice when you're climbing, or is it for fun, or is it meditative?
I think it's all of those things, to be honest. I really love it, and I'm more trying to have it something that I can do for the long haul, not something that I do to try to climb at a certain level or anything like that. It's meditative, and it's just a good outlet for me when I'm feeling stressed, and it's a good social activity as well.
You were part of a climbing team?
When I was a kid, yeah. Yeah. From age 6 until 18, I was on a climbing team in Chicago, and it was competitive, and we traveled the country.
So it's like indoor because it's Chicago.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's indoor.
It was all indoor for sure.
What was that like? You do outdoor climbing also?
I do, but we just didn't have as many opportunities to go outside in Chicago.
What was that
Everything was like at least a 6-hour drive away.
What's it like coming from that and then you come to this mecca of climbing?
I mean, that's
here in
honestly why
Boulder?
I'm here.
Okay.
I think around like sophomore year of college was when I first came out to Boulder to do a competition, and just absolutely fell in love with it, and basically spent every minute from that point on trying to figure out how I could get into CU and convince my parents to let me move out here and all that stuff.
Did you study business at CU?
No.
What did you study at CU?
I studied environmental science,
Oh.
so I wanted to save the world.
Ah.
Yeah.
Now you're shaping young minds in a way to help them save the world someday.
Yeah, hopefully. So it's funny because I'm not using my degree at all. But when I worked at Thorne Nature School in Boulder, I don't know if you guys have heard of that. They do like educational programs for kids, and they go into schools and they have summer camps, and I worked in their office, and I also worked as a teacher's assistant, and I got to kind of teach environmental concepts to the kids. But then I realized that I really enjoyed spending time with kids, and I enjoyed environmental science too and teaching the concepts, but I just wanted to be able to work with kids in a certain capacity. And when I graduated, all the jobs that were environmental science type jobs didn't involve working with children. So,
Did your parents have anything to say about, hey, we just paid this money for you to go to college and now you're going to work with kids?
no, actually, they've never once said that. I think the experience of college and like going through the process of like just being responsible enough to get to all of your classes and do the work and, just manage your own time and everything is where the value of like at least undergrad is, I think. So, yeah, no, they never said anything like that.
For grade school, I know that you went to a Montessori school.
I did.
For someone who has no idea what that is,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
could you elaborate on what that is and what it is like to go to a monastery? I always say monastery, but that's not right. Montessori.
Yeah.
You're like a monk at the monastery. What was I saying? Monastery school?
Monastery school.
Montessori.
So, yeah, and Montessori was, I think, started by Maria Montessori years ago. And it's kind of focused on like educating the whole child and like self-guided learning. So starting at age 3 all the way through 8th grade, which I don't know if there are that many Montessori schools that go all the way to 8th grade because it is such self-guided learning. Basically, I was put in a classroom with kids ages 3 to 6, and we all kind of worked together, and there were just different stations throughout the room, and you kind of just got to pick what you wanted to work on that day, and they always called it your work. Even if it was playtime, it was always the child's work. And yeah, sometimes we would like convene for little like lessons and stuff like that. Like I think I had like Spanish lessons and little reading groups and stuff like that.
Do you remember the stations? Was it like coloring, pottery, bugs? Like, what did that look like? I don't know.
It was more like, especially in like the preschool and kindergarten, it was a lot of like domestic work.
Oh.
Like learning how to pour and like wash clothes and I always loved they had this little like wood carving station where you could like carve little pieces of wood and then glue them together. I loved that. Tricky ways to teach you math. There were like counting beads and blocks, and I guess I was learning like geometry and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how old were you? What, you went up to year 14 there?
Yeah, to 8th grade.
8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
But like I said, like I don't know if there are that many Montessori schools that go to 8th grade because it is self-guided learning. So essentially I was handed a textbook and told, do this chapter, answer all the questions, and then I would bring the questions or the answers to my teacher, and she would look at them and tell me if everything was right or if there was something I needed to work on. And then I would go to the next chapter. So I wasn't ever being taught it. I had to read it and practice it. And if I got everything right, it was never it was never talked about again. But if there was something wrong, then like she would kind of help me figure it out. But
was the transition from the Montessori school to high school different? Was it difficult? Was it no challenge
honestly,
at all?
I could have gone directly from 8th grade to freshman year of college and been just fine. Yeah. I don't
Why do
really
you say
know if
that?
there was well, I went to a Chicago public high school, which they're not necessarily known for excelling at academics.
Right. But did you enjoy it, like the social aspect, or which would you like better?
Of high school, yeah. I definitely went to like a school in the city of Chicago that was very much a melting pot, and I just enjoyed meeting tons of different kids from, all over the city, all over the world. And yeah, I think I learned a lot that had nothing to do with academics.
Right, just kind of
in high
social.
school. Yeah.
And what about structure-wise? Were you blown away like, oh, wait, you're going to...
Oh, it was so hard to go from not needing to sit in a desk all day to needing to sit still. So, yeah.
How'd you meet your husband?
I met my husband freshman year at CU.
Ah.
Yeah. He actually was wearing a climbing company shirt. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you a rock climber? And he was like, no, my mom bought this for me. But it was like a way to meet.
His mom had no idea.
No, it's pretty funny.
And when did you get married?
We got married about 4.5 years ago.
Oh.
So yeah, we dated for a long time before we got married.
No, that's great.
Clearly, we take a long time to do everything because we don't have kids yet.
Yeah, nothing wrong
all
with
right.
that. I don't have any animals.
Really?
Nope.
That is so funny.
I know.
That's hilarious.
Because
it's
you're
like
right. When I get home, sometimes I'm like, I need a break. Or sometimes I'll look around because I think, like, where are they? When we used to
Oh my
drive them
gosh.
around, we used to bring them to dog parks. We don't do this anymore. But at the end of the week, I'd be done, and I would constantly be looking in my rearview mirror, thinking, "Oh my gosh, is there one still in the back of the seat?" And Travis used to. The same thing would happen to him.
I have, I don't know if you guys use that Waze app, but they have like a little child reminder that you can turn on. And even though I haven't babysat in like a month, I think I still have it on my phone just because I'm a nervous
You don't
wreck
want to leave
about
anybody
it.
in the car.
No.
Yeah.
What is this app?
It's like a GPS.
Yeah.
app.
It's like it tells you traffic and stuff. I didn't know it had a child alarm on it, though. That's a great thing.
Like
I love
child
it.
still in the car alarm?
Well, it's anytime you reach your destination, it goes like "boo-doo-doo," and it's like check for children in your car.
That's a great thing, though, because that's a horrible thing when you hear about that happening. And I see, like, how unfortunate that could be that could happen. And it's so... What a great thing. I did not know Waze did that. You're teaching people, you're saving lives right now. Letting people know that does that.
Yeah, I love that. But it's funny. I sometimes have woken up in like stress dreams that I've like left a kid somewhere or like forgotten to put them in their crib and they're just like crawling around the house. And I'm like, wait, I don't have kids. Or like I've woken up in such a panic that I want to, and it seems so real that I want to like call the mom and ask her like, is everything okay?
I'm sure they would have called you if it was.
One time I had a dream that, it was the night after I had gotten home from babysitting these two little twin babies all night, And I think I had gotten home at like 1 a.m. or something. And this was not long after I actually fell asleep. But I had this dream that they actually lived in my neighborhood. But I had this dream that they somehow had gotten out of their crib and were crawling to me. And it was so real that I had to call the mom the next morning and say, did I put them in their cribs?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
I've heard weird stuff like that too.
It just, I don't know, like the stress of just like wanting to do everything like perfectly and not make any mistakes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I know all about that.
Yes. It's
And
so
managing
funny
a whole team.
I feel like we need to talk more and be friends because
Yep.
I love that you don't have any pets, even though you love animals so much.
Yes.
Everyone's like, if you love kids so much, why don't you have your own kids? I'm like, I just think I don't know.
Yeah, don't judge me.
Yeah.
No.
I care for hundreds of them all week long, and it wouldn't be fair. You know,
Right.
what, we're going to bring our kids over, or our fur or human kids over to our clients' homes.
I think about teachers who are also moms all the time, and I just feel for them. They must be superheroes or something.
If you could say anything to parents or potential parents on ways that they should be treating their babysitter, what would you like them to know?
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, that is one of the things I'm trying to talk about in my new business, because I think a lot of parents think that it goes one way and that why wouldn't everyone want to work for me? And unfortunately, that's not really the case. I can't tell you the things that parents have thought that I'll do just because I'm being paid, which is really interesting.
It's like, oh, go do my laundry or something.
But I think one of the main things that I want parents to know is that when you are hiring someone into your home to care for your kids, that is so much different than any other job you're hiring for. And that's so much different than any other job that they could possibly go do. And it needs to be approached in like with that in mind. So you can't just say, oh, this is their job, or, they should do this or they should want to do that because they're being paid, or it's a job they need to, work hard at my job. I don't get to do that, But when someone's working with your children, you need to give them, and they're coming into your home and into your environment and trying to like mold to how you want to do things. Just know that that's going to take time, and like you should be patient and not try to like
so like if they can
micromanage. I don't know.
Yeah, like understand how difficult that must be to step into someone else's life.
Correct,
and
try to and be expected to be like perfect and do everything the way you do it right away.
Right, and I think you're
just allowing for like a certain amount of like grace if things go wrong, or because it is someone who's going to be around your kids. So for example, because I hire so many sitters, I do hear like little complaints, and I can filter out the things that actually need to be addressed from the things that can kind of be pushed aside until it becomes something that is consistently happening, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
So I just know from being the babysitter how personal some little comments can feel. Like something that might not seem like such a big deal to the parents might feel really intense to hear as a babysitter, especially when you really care for their kids and you're really trying to do a good job.
It sounds like you just are asking for respect, and it's more of I need to be respected as a person and respected for the job I'm doing, and not just treated like, I don't know what the term
you
is.
Can't, you just cannot treat someone who's trying to do their best job with your children the same way you would treat other people.
Right.
Yeah. I find in the service industry in general that there are some people who, when I come into their house, I'm just the hired help.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
They are, they may be working from home. They don't say hi to me. That's okay. But learning what to take personally and what not to, that filter that's a business, years of business and experience, figuring all that out.
Right.
And then of course setting policies.
Right. And that's the other part of this new service that I'm trying to start is being sort of like a coach or like a consultant or mentor for babysitters who or other service industry workers who are just now experiencing that kind of treatment, and allowing them to come to me with their concerns or their questions and let them know like what things are normal and you should just kind of like go with it and put up with it, or what things are not acceptable, and maybe like this is how you should approach your employer to try to get them to change or to just stop working with them.
I think that's a great idea,
I think so.
because otherwise nobody knows until
Yeah.
it's learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of just fly with it.
And I also act as a mediator with the babysitters that I have on my team right now. Like I said, parents will come to me with issues, and I can kind of decide what needs to actually be relayed to the babysitter and what can kind of just be set aside until it becomes like something that every parent is telling me about, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have babysitters come to me like, I don't really like the fact that a parent is doing this. And I can say, you know, I hear you, and like that's happened to me before, and that's something that is like really common, and you might just have to deal with it. That's just part of being a babysitter in someone's home.
Yeah. And that happens a lot.
Mhm.
And opposed to, I know that there's many households that absolutely love you guys, I'm sure, just like I do too, and think we're the best ever. They love us. They give us fantastic gratuities. They
Yes.
give us gifts at Christmas and all the holidays. And, you know,
Isn't
we're
that
part
funny?
of the family. And I love when that happens too.
Mhm.
I was just curious. I have a lot of questions now. They're all coming up as we're
Cool.
getting closer to our time.
I
But-
don't have a time limit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What do you bring household rules? Is there rules that your babysitters bring in, or are you guys all about conforming to each household's rules that they're already enforcing before you show up? That's a lot of work, even just to sift that all out.
So, I like that question a lot. So, we have company policies. So things that just across the board, I don't want anyone doing, right? Or things that I want them always doing, for example. I always ask the question. I ask parents, like, if they have any rules or any, like, schedules or ways that they want things done. We try to adhere to, like, the kids' schedules as much as possible, just because that's better for the kids and tends to make things go more smoothly. But I also feel really strongly about the fact that we are professionals and that we do this all the time, and we have our styles and our way of doing things, and I'm not going to make anyone conform to something that they're not. And I find that times when parents have said, okay, I need you to do this, and this is how we do things in our house, and can you be flexible and conform to this? And when I try to, that's when I start making mistakes, because I'm thinking too hard about how they want me to do things and not just how I innately know how to do things. And I think that some of like the biggest like mistakes I've ever made, or like even kids getting hurt, is when I'm just like trying to follow their rule or their schedule versus just doing something the way I always do it.
What kind of activities are you doing with the kids?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I mean, so we try to, this is, obviously Boulder and everyone's very outdoorsy. So one of the questions I ask when I'm interviewing is if they're okay with, opting outside essentially and getting the kids out to the park, weather permitting, and taking them on little like sports outings, just exhausting all sorts of like active activities before any sort of, I get, before like screen time or even indoor play, I guess. Everyone wants sitters to take their kids outside and get their energy out. But I also love playing games and doing arts and crafts and reading. I love reading.
That sounds fun.
Anytime I get a kid who will just like sit there with me for like an hour or two reading,
Yeah.
it makes me so happy.
I'm thinking my only experience with all of this, I don't have any children.
Yeah.
So I've never hired a babysitter, but I've been babysat, you know, and it made me think that those were the things that I liked about my babysitters was that they read to me or we did other things other than watching TV.
Right.
And this was way before iPads, way before cell phones. I mean, TV, that was the only screen in the house.
Yeah.
No computers even.
It's funny how things have changed for babysitters as well, because like when we were kids, it was like as long as they like kept us alive, like that was sufficient. And I remember I had this terrible babysitter who was always watching TV. And what my parents didn't like was not that she was watching TV, but that she wouldn't let me watch what I wanted to watch. She was watching like the news and like her soap operas and stuff. But like my parents weren't even mad about that. They were like, they wouldn't have been mad if she had let me watch like cartoons, you know. But
Yeah. You know,
it's funny because I think as kids we definitely crave people who are there to just play with us and focus on us, and they don't have anything else to work on, which is another reason I took a step back, because I started to realize that I kind of needed to be two places at once, and I was getting emails and phone calls and texts that I wasn't responding to fast enough, and I noticed that I was saying, just a minute, you know, and that just feels, I was like, it's time. I need to have the time to do the administrative stuff and let the sitters who, you know, just need a break from school or their regular jobs take over. So, yeah.
awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
course.
And I'm serious. Just from a mom to any other moms listening, like, I feel like you're the real deal. And I give you a mom seal of approval. That's for sure. So thank you for coming on here, Jimie.
Thank you for having me. I feel so honored and, yeah, that you would even think to have me on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And not Christy, goodness, Jimie, we were just talking about Christy earlier. Jimie, if more people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
On my website, which is really easy, it's myboulderbabysitter.com. And I think I maybe have anything you could possibly want to know listed on the website.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jimie. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask, if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.